My Plate, My Planet.
My Plate, My Planet is an initiative of the Food Choice Task Force that we did around, recently here in the U.S., we had the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, right? So that's a bunch of scientists that the government gets together to tell the USDA and the Human Health and Services Group what they should be doing about food guidelines. And they do it every 5 years. And so this year they did something very unprecedented. These scientists came back and said, we need to put sustainability language into the guidelines. We need to understand this connection between our food choices and the environment and climate change. They made that link for the first time. And they also said, eat more plants and less meat and dairy for the first time. So we thought, all right, we need to roll in behind this. So we did a big publicity campaign around these guidelines. And we actually took, normally there's a comment period. Normally they get about 5,000 public comments. As a result of the My Plate, My Planet campaign, they got something like 35,000 public comments. So now they have to actually listen to us.
Wow. Us
being the grassroots, you know, because the leadership doesn't do anything without the grassroots being there first.
We're always talking about what are the action items when we make a documentary. You know, what are we asking people to do? What are the changes they can make in their daily life? Well, I'm going to tell you one. I watched that film, Forks Over Knives. I went into the kitchen. I took everything out of the kitchen that was not a plant. And for 5.5 months, I've eaten only plants. No meat, no dairy, no eggs, no fish. As Sylvia's always saying, if you want to save the fish, just don't eat them. Right? I'm healthier, I've got more energy, my cardio endurance has about doubled. I used to run 20-25 minutes, I'm now running an hour. It's amazing, but setting aside the health benefits, how often do you get that kind of incredible win-win where you can really transform the planet? And it's possible. You've got to check the facts for yourself. You're not going to believe it, hearing it from me. But I want to challenge everybody here. If you're an environmentalist, I say, my challenge is, you can't be an environmentalist. You can't be an ocean steward without truly walking the walk, and you can't walk the walk in the world of the future, the world ahead of us, the world of our children, not eating a plant-based diet. That's my challenge. You can check the facts for yourselves.
People think, well, what's meat and dairy got to do with climate change? Well, there's an enormous carbon footprint to animal agriculture. It's actually the second biggest sector for the production of greenhouse warming, greater than all transportation combined, but most people don't think in those terms.
You are a vegan, I believe. How
Correct.
Important is it, do you think, that we should eat less or no meat?
I think it's very important. I think most of the conversation about lowering the amount of meat or fish or dairy in your diet has been around health, especially around kind of red meat, and more recently the World Health Organization announcement that red meats and processed meats are carcinogenic and so on. But my reason for going 100% plant-based 4 years ago was really around the environment. If we really want to wrangle our environmental problems across the board, including, you know, runoff pollution in the oceans and water shortage and all that sort of thing, but most specifically climate change, you really need to change your diet. You need to take responsibility as an individual. And I got to the point where I firmly believe now that you cannot claim to be an environmentalist if you're still eating meat and dairy and fish. You're just not an environmentalist. I don't care how many degrees you've got. I don't care how many speeches you've made on the subject. You can't be if you don't walk the walk.
If you're talking about walking the walk, I mean, might people say to you, can you be an environmentalist with the level of consumption that you and your household are probably responsible for? I mean, forgive me, I don't know personally, but I can hear that accusation coming back to you.
Sure, it's a natural response. I try to live with the least amount of consumption that I can function with, given all the enterprises that I do and, frankly, all the jobs that I make and all the big projects that I have going. But as a family, we live with the lowest carbon footprint we can. As a vegan or plant-based family, our carbon footprint is about 1/3 with respect to food, and our water footprint is about 1/3. We make all our own energy with solar. We drive electric cars. So we're trying to walk the walk as much as possible. And I think as someone who's in a media spotlight, you have to lead by example.
People will see giving up meat as a big sacrifice. Do you think we all had to be prepared to make big sacrifices in the end to save the planet?
Yeah, I do think we do. We have to make lifestyle changes. We have to take responsibility. We have to consume less, and we have to be much, much smarter about how we consume. We have to feel empowered. We have to feel like if we can't rely on our leaders to solve this problem, we can do it ourselves.
Look, I think there are a lot of people out there, telling us that climate change exists, what the impacts are going to be, working in renewable energy and all the things that need to be done, working in transportation. My focus is a niche focus. When I go downstairs, I'm going to be talking about food. People think, what's food got to do with climate? Well, this is the big elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. When people think of how we mitigate climate change, they initially think of, coal-fired power plants and tailpipe emissions. Okay, you're good. There's a missing middle, because greater than the entire transportation sector of the entire world is animal agriculture. So here's a place where we can make a huge personal difference, you, me, everybody out there. We don't have to wait to build wind farms. We don't have to wait to build solar plants. We can just change what we eat. Just eat less meat and dairy, and your carbon footprint drops way down. So I eat 100% plant-based. I'm not asking people to do that, but since I do, my water footprint is about half of, let's say, somebody who eats a standard American diet. My carbon footprint is about a third. And so I feel, not only is it making me healthier, but I feel I'm contributing to a healthier planet. And I've made that decision irrespective of what legislators do. And we can't wait for them. We need to take action ourselves.
I saw an interview where somebody associated with Avatar said that before you started shooting that you took the cast over to Hawaii and you actually saw clear cutting in it, kind of this epiphany.
Right.
I want to talk to you about your epiphanies. What was it that created your epiphany about climate, and then about this linkage, food and climate?
I've always been very conscious of our impact on the environment. I'm a child of the 60s. So you had the big oil spill in Santa Barbara that was on the cover of Time magazine in 1969. And even though I was living in Canada at the time, I became very aware. So I've followed this for a long time. The big epiphany for me around the food-climate connection was about 3.5 years ago, because I had known how heavy the footprint of animal agriculture is and how devastating it is. It's the greatest source of biodiversity loss. It's the greatest polluter of water. Et cetera, et cetera. You go on down the list. It's horrific. But I thought, well, bummer, because I need to have my animal protein. That's just the way human beings are wired. 3.5 years ago, I found out that not only is that not true, it's actually the opposite. It's actually harmful to your body, and it contributes a lot to the kinds of diseases that we have, and so-called diseases of affluence, like heart disease and diabetes and osteoporosis and things like that, and a number of cancers. So I thought, wow, this is a win-win. I just cut out all the meat and dairy. I'm doing my thing for the environment, and I'm doing my thing for myself and my own longevity. And as a father, I need to be around to protect my family. So it just all added up. It was like, wow, where's the bad news in this story? There isn't any.